Hey everybody, what's up? Tim here. Hope wherever you're at, you are doing awesome, having a phenomenal day and crushing it. Thanks so much for watching. So the title for today's clip is called Be Strong and Courageous, Joshua 1:9. And this clip, I am super excited to say, is the first clip in a third series of videos that I'm launching. Now the very first one, the SCE videos, are going to continue. Those are based on leadership, psych, self-improvement topics that I've learned over the course of my life that hopefully give you tools that you can put into place. Second video series that I launched are going to continue as well. Those are the magnetic moment clips, and those are designed to be really, really short and to inspire and encourage. This series, haven't even thought of a name for yet. Maybe we'll call them the word series, but these are going to be faith-based in nature. And it's gotten to the point where I have just felt compelled to share some of these things from a spirituality standpoint, from a faith-based standpoint, because at the end of the day, to me, they are what resonate the most. So once again, be strong and courageous, Joshua 1:9. So when I graduated from high school, I decided I was going to sign up for a military college. I didn't want to go to a regular college. I wanted to go to a military college. And about 6 weeks after I graduated high school, I was in basic training at Fort Knox, and I loved basic training. It was awesome. We were shooting and driving tanks and fighting the enemy and rappelling out of helicopters and doing all kinds of cool stuff. Well, after basic ended, that fall, I started my tenure in military school. And military school, I hated. I went in as a plebe, and as a plebe, you are treated like dirt. And the school that I went to had a high school, prep school attached to it. And because of that, all the kids in high school who had been there longer than me were upperclassmen, and they could make me do push-ups and pull-ups and the whole 9 yards. Plus, you couldn't leave the campus till after Christmas. You couldn't get mail or receive it. You couldn't make any calls, and I absolutely hated it. So one night, I decided I was gonna escape. And this was only about 3 days into it. So I snuck off a post, snuck through all the guard towers, all the watches, ended up on a golf course in their clubhouse, and called my dad and said, "Dad, get me out of here. I can't stand this. I don't want to be here." And just as that happened, the MPs from the school came, picked me up, and hauled my keister back to the barracks. Well, I wasn't worried because I knew that the next day my dad would be down there. So what I want to talk about is the verse from Joshua 1:9 that says, "Do not be discouraged, do not be terrified. Be strong and courageous, for I, the Lord your God, am with you wherever you go." Now, this verse comes to us out of the book of Joshua, and it's spoken to Joshua. Joshua is the leader of the Israelites, and he's got a heck of a challenge on his hands. For 400 years, the Israelites were captives in Egypt, and then God freed them, and they got to the point where they were given the promised land, and they marched through the desert and got to the promised land. And God said, "Hey, I want you to take this promised land." And they folded. They couldn't do it. They didn't believe that God would back them up. And as a result of that, they wandered in the desert for 40 years. Well, fast forward 40 years, they now come back to the promised land and are under the leadership of Joshua. And Joshua is standing on the banks of the Jordan River, leading about 3 million people, and is now prepared to do what God told them to do 40 years ago. And that had to be a heavy task, right? Because the promised land, although exciting, was filled with enemies, it was filled with giants, it was filled with tremendous obstacles and challenges. But God said to him, "Look, I don't want you to be fearful, and I don't want you to be discouraged. I want you to be strong and courageous, because I am with you." Now, in my posts, I talk a lot about fear and how to attack fear, because I think fear is the enemy, and I am on a quest to try to help people overcome and attack and destroy fear as much as possible. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is, if you and I aren't anchored into God, if we don't have that fundamental faith component, the strategies and the tips and the skills only go so far. And God tells us, don't be fearful, don't be discouraged, because I am with you. And not only does he tell us not to be fearful or discouraged, he says, be strong and courageous. How do we do that? Our strength comes from the joy of the Lord. Our courage comes from acting on what he told us to do. He said, take up that disposition. And he said, the key point in all of this is, I will be with you. I will never leave you or forsake you. No matter where you go or what you do, I've got your back. Just like at military school, when I called my father, I knew he was going to show up with all his resources, with all his abilities, with all his skills to back me up no matter what situation I was in. Same thing is true with God. When we've got him on our side, when we are plugged into him, no matter what situation we're in, we know he's going to show up with all his resources, with all of his vast reservoir of skills and abilities, and the fact that he's God. And we don't even need to ask him to show up because he is with us all the time. We just need to become aware of his presence and plug into that. So it works on both sides of the ledger, on the positive, on the negative. For Joshua and his people, they were given the promised land. So whatever you've been promised, that vision, that dream, remember, God is on your side and going with you. If it's to start a business, if it's to lose weight, if it's to find a relationship, or if it's to earn a certain amount of money, or to go on a mission trip, or to write a book, or to play an instrument, or to play a sport, or to get a certain position at work, or whatever the case is, that dream that's in your heart, that dream that's stirring, that vision, don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Be strong and courageous. That is your promised land. Go for it and recognize that God goes with you. He's giving you the vision. He's supporting you. And it doesn't matter what you come up against. It doesn't matter what resistance there is. It doesn't matter what challenges there are. He is with you. And with him in your corner, you can do the impossible. You can do anything because he is God of the impossible. Same thing applies on the challenge side. If you're facing financial difficulties or relationship difficulties or difficulties at work or sickness or health issues or whatever the case may be, no matter how black, how dark it looks, God is with you. He's calling us to be strong and courageous. And we've talked about all the tips and strategies we can use to be strong and courageous, but our ultimate strength, the ultimate courage comes from him, comes from being plugged into him, knowing him, realizing that he's with us. And when he is with you, nothing can stand against you. Nothing is impossible to you. Nothing is impossible for you. You cannot be stopped. It may take some time, but with him on your side, you can overcome anything. You can achieve that vision. You can overcome that obstacle. So today, recognize that God is with you. He never leaves you. He never forsakes you. He is your source. With him comes all strength and all courage. And we are called to be strong and courageous, not to be fearful, not to be discouraged. And we need to resist those things. And we need to look to him for our strength, because when he's in us and with us, there isn't anything that's impossible to us, meaning we can do anything that's set before us. We can overcome anything. And even if we're in the process of that with him by our side, it doesn't matter because we have all that we need. So Tim here, reminding you, like Joshua, be strong and courageous, because when you make the call to your Father, he is on his way, and nothing can stand against him, and nothing can stand against you. Hope you have an awesome day. I'll talk to you soon.